Hey y'all, today is Let Them Eat Gluten-Free Cake's 6th birthday. And to celebrate, I made an old-fashioned gluten-free yellow cake with chocolate fudge frosting. It's the quintessential birthday cake, don't you think? Something that has stood the test of time. Fluffy and moist yellow cake is surrounded by the most luxurious chocolate fudge frosting. So let's get into it and I'll show you how to make it. We'll start off by making the cakes. So I'm adding 2 sticks or 256 grams of softened butter to the bowl of my stand mixer, or you can use a handheld mixer. Y'all just know that I always use my stand mixer for nearly everything. And I'll just whip this up real quick before adding in 2 cups or 400 grams of granulated sugar, and then I'll cream these two together for just a few minutes until it looks like this. Now I have 4 large egg yolks here, and I'm going to add these one at a time, just beating for a couple of seconds after each until you no longer see the egg yolk. I've saved the whites, 2 of the whites, in a separate bowl, and I'll add them in later. 2 of the whites are also in my fridge for another application. So you only need 2 egg whites for this, but 4 egg yolks. And this is 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract, so I'll add that in. And I'm just going to stop this real quick and scrape down the sides and bottom of the bowl. Okay, I'll let that mix for another 30 seconds or so. Let me just slide this over for a minute while I get my wet and dry ingredients ready. This is 280 grams or 2 cups of my gluten-free all-purpose flour blend. And I'm adding to that 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. All right, let me slide the mixer back over now. And I'm going to alternate adding the wet and dry, starting with about a third of the dry. And then a half of the wet, which is 1 cup or 260 grams of whole fat buttermilk. Try to get whole fat if you can. It really makes a difference when you're making something like a cake. All right, I'll finish with the rest of the flour mixture. Let's just scrape the bowl down again and mix this for another 20 minutes or so just to make sure, or 20 seconds, I mean, not minutes. God, no, you don't want to do minutes. 20 seconds or so just to make sure everything is well combined. Alrighty, that looks good. So I'll set this aside again. And I'm going to grab my bowl with the 2 egg whites in it. And these are at room temperature. Like I said, the other egg whites are in my fridge. They will not get wasted for sure. I'll have another baking project that requires only egg whites, so it's no problem. So I've got my handheld beater here. And I've got the whisk attachment. If yours has a whisk attachment, use that. And I'll just whisk these egg whites to about stiff peaks. Okay, now let me grab the rest of this batter, and I'm going to actually sacrifice just about a quarter of these egg whites here. And what I mean by that is I'm just going to take a little of them and kind of vigorously add them into the batter. And that's just to lighten up the batter just a little bit before gently folding in the rest of the egg whites. It's when you have like something that's so thick like this batter is, you really need to lighten it up just a little bit more so it makes it easier. It's kind of like tempering in a way, tempering that batter to come to that same consistency, if you will. All right, I've got my 2 8-inch round cake pans that I greased with butter and floured with some of my all-purpose flour mix. You could also line them with parchment, but this is a stickier batter, so you need to make sure the sides are well coated and not just the bottom. That's why I like to do grease and flour for cakes like this. I'll divide it as evenly as possible and spread it out as best I can. And I'm going to get these into my preheated 325 Fahrenheit oven, where I'll bake them for about 30 minutes or until they spring back when lightly touched or a toothpick inserted into the center comes out clean. I'll cool these in the pans now on the wire rack for 15 to 20 minutes. And then I'm going to remove them from the pans to cool completely on the wire rack. All right, let's move on to the chocolate fudge frosting, y'all. So in my bowl, I have 400 grams or 3¼ cups of powdered sugar, and I'm adding 2/3 cup or 80 grams of unsweetened cocoa powder. The natural cocoa is fine. You don't really need anything darker. Let me just quickly whisk these together because I'm using my bowl scraper attachment, and I know how this will go otherwise. There will be like a cloud of cocoa and powdered sugar if I don't. Okay, next I'm going to add in 1½ sticks, which is 150 grams of very, very soft spreadable butter. Make sure it's soft or you will not get the same like fudgy results. Now I'm adding in a teaspoon of vanilla, give or take. And I'm going to start with 1/3 cup or 80 milliliters of boiling hot coffee, or you can use water. I like the coffee because it makes the chocolate extra chocolatey. It really brings out that chocolate flavor. And I'll mix this together and I'm going to see where I'm at now. Sometimes I need more hot coffee, but not always. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'll go ahead and add in 2 ounces or 60 grams of melted dark or semi-sweet chocolate, and I just melted this in the microwave at like half power for about a minute or so, and then stirred it together until all the pieces were melted. Now we can let this mix for a good 2 minutes just to get everything combined. It's gonna look pretty loose at this point, and that's normal. It will tighten up, I promise. You normally will put this in the fridge for 30 minutes and it will tighten up. But I'm going to go ahead and frost this cake now with it being a little looser because my husband has been dying for a piece of this cake. All right, since I'm not waiting 30 minutes in the fridge with this frosting, I'm going to go ahead and line my cake stand with a few strips of parchment, and that'll just keep it from being super messy. And I'm going to put about, I don't know, like a cup of frosting or so on top, and I'll smooth it out with my offset spatula to the edges. Look at how dreamy this fudge frosting is, y'all. Okay, I'll take the second cake layer and I'm going to flip it over so the bottom is now on the top, just so it's nice and level on top. And I'll add the rest of this frosting to the top and then slowly work down the sides. Like I said, I want it like rustic and swirly, not all neat like I normally do. And, you know, you're definitely going to get it completely rustic if you don't put the frosting in the fridge for 30 minutes. Boy, I can't get my seconds and minutes right. It's 30 minutes in the fridge, not 30 seconds. That is not going to do you any good. Just 30 seconds. And that's all there is to it, you guys. I can't wait any longer. I've got to cut into this thing. But first, I'm going to pull these parchment paper strips out. And again, like I said, if your frosting is too loose, just pop it in the fridge for 30 minutes because most of the time it is going to be too loose. It requires normally the 30 minutes of fridge time, maybe even an hour if it's still a little on the looser side. I just didn't do that here because, like I said, my husband has been really patiently waiting for a slice of this cake. So no better way than I can think of to celebrate my blog's 6th birthday. I can't even believe that I have been doing this for 6 years. So it had to be cake, of course. And what's better than a yellow cake with chocolate fudge frosting? Only a gluten-free yellow cake with chocolate fudge frosting. Enjoy!